Thanks very much, Tom, and a very warm welcome to Islington and the Business Design Centre here this morning. I hope that you're going to get as much as possible out of the show today, but what I wanted to do was just really set the scene for some of the speakers that are coming through into the panel sessions later on today. First of all, if I could just a little mention really regarding self-trade, because we've got a stand out there today. And we are owned by the Equiniti Group. Now, many people might be saying, well, who is Equiniti? What we actually do is quite diverse. We probably touch the lives of about a third of the population in the UK today. We pay the armed forces pensions and the NHS trust pensions. We administer the registers for a fair proportion of the FTSE 100 companies, about 60%. We are the largest share plan administrator in the UK. And first and foremost, we're a technology-led business. And technology, as you'll see later on through the discussion I've got here, plays more and more of a role as we go forward. But I think the really interesting thing that we've got is that we've got a brokerage business in Equiniti today, which is self-trade. We acquired self-trade around about 18 months ago. Lots of changes took place during that period of time. We've been doing lots of work behind the scenes to improve services, improve and enhance the experience that customers have. And therefore, in doing that, we've been uniquely placed in the marketplace to listen to what investors are saying and look at a wide range of different experiences. And as you are sitting here today, you've obviously got some interest in what's going on out in the stock market. What we're finding more and more is that there are novices coming to these sessions, which is great news. And there are really experienced investors as well, hobbyist investors that have got lots of deep technical questions to ask. So we've got a real combination going on. So what we try and do as much as possible is to pitch it in a way that it can appeal for everybody and there's something in there more and more. Part of what I want to do today is talk about the ethnography of what's going on out there in the marketplace today. It's quite important because it's going to influence companies that you might be investing in, and it's shaping the future through technology and different experiences. And what I wanted to do is just provide you with some insight of what the real public are thinking around investment. So I'm going to cover off 3 areas today. One is around how many people are out there thinking about retirement and what they need to do. The second is the changing world that we are living in terms of self-service and having to take accountability for our own financial futures. And then the third is some of the areas that you might want to consider whilst you're at the show here today, and some of the points that you might want to bring forward and raise with some of the speakers and some of the exhibitors at the same time. So let's hear from what our customers are saying out there at the moment with regards to retirement.
Good financial planning would certainly help you have a comfortable retirement.
I would just like a nice lump of money just to see me through.
Just be in nature. That's my idea of a perfect retirement.
I would like to go to America.
Explore the world and see my grandchildren, maybe.
Not a retirement home. Hopefully I make enough money to have a good pension.
Hopefully a couple of houses, maybe one holiday home.
Me and him, south of France, feet up.
A nice house and I guess, enough money so you can do things that you want.
So it's not having loads, it's just having enough really.
I still haven't quite figured that out yet. Probably work hard, invest in some shares and property.
I'm completely unprepared and I'm glad you came to talk to me today because it's made me think about it and I'd better start doing something about it.
The only realistic way to fund our retirement is to start saving now.
By trying to save around about 20% of my wages into retirement.
I haven't really got a big enough pension put away, so I think I'd have to carry on working.
Personally, for a pension, I know a lot of people now are doing it through property.
Making decent sort of pension contributions and making sure that that's invested properly.
I just presume that something's going to work out in the end. I just hope that something eventually falls in my lap.
Yeah, a pension to fund my retirement would probably be the only thing. I can't think of an alternative.
my gosh. I don't know.
Rob a bank and write off everyone's tuition fees.
Stop buying stuff. Buy more lottery tickets.
Start a pension plan.
Probably just sort of clean up a bit of debt and that, do you know what I mean? And maybe put an extra couple of quid away.
I think personally, I think about moving out of London.
Invest in some sort of stock option that would feel a little more secure.
A savings plan, because I don't currently have that at the moment.
Save up. Just keep on working hard.
I think I'd turn the clock back a bit further and try and make more provision if I could.
Paying more attention to my share portfolio. So I guess it's that really, sort of looking at that and seeing which shares I should sort of dispose of and invest the money in new shares really.
It's fascinating, isn't it? Just people's views out there on the street today around their whole attitude towards investing and preparing for retirement. Now, for many of us, it's interesting now that we are so used to being online. Yeah, we trade stocks online. It's become par for the course. It's the norm. And despite my youthful looks and boyish charm, in 1986, I was there on the stock exchange floor, just getting ready for a thing called Big Bang. And for those people that are aware, it's the 30th anniversary of Big Bang in October. The 26th of October, next month, is Big Bang. And Big Bang brought together the deregulation of the markets. Minimum trading fees, etc., disappeared, and we saw the advent of basically an open marketplace. And I remember going along because I had to then do exams. We constantly do exams. I had to do my registered representatives exam for the stock exchange. And we had a thing called Topic come in. I don't know if anybody remembers Topic in this room, but multiple colours, etc. Great news, I'm colourblind. So here we go, off the floor, onto computerised trading, and I'm colourblind. I hadn't got a clue what cyan was as a colour, but I kind of found my way through it and made a few mistakes and fat thumbs, which is why I don't trade anymore, but there we go. But it was interesting because at that point, as we moved off of the floor onto computerised trading, you didn't have any appreciation of what was about to come. And we've come an incredibly long way in 25 years. But what really strikes me is the amount of self-service we've all got used to. And I was thinking about this, here we go. This gives away your age a little bit more. I remember the milkman. Indeed, I used to have a milk round as a kid. I used to go out and help deliver the milk. But how many people have seen one of the electric milk floats out there recently? You've got one. Hang on to it. Because actually most people now just go down to the supermarket and they self-serve. They scan. We see those lovely things now that go bleep and you have to put it into the right place and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But we're getting very used to self-serving and scanning ourselves. I thought about Blockbuster. Yeah, Blockbuster was the stock market darling at one point. Go along, rent your video for the weekend, and then just drop it back in the letterbox on a Sunday night. Disappeared. Why? Because it's been taken over by Netflix now. We download. We're very used now to just downloading and streaming video. Another great access point there was valet parking. Valet parking. What have we now got? Cars that now park themselves. And then finally, go way, way back, and I will not remember this, or maybe just. Somebody used to come out and fill your petrol tank up for you at the station. Well, that's long gone. That has long gone, and you self-serve yourself. So we are now in a self-serve economy. And from that perspective, we've now got access to a wide range of media that help us to help ourselves. But what does that really mean in terms of being there and self-serving ourselves? Well, we look at it as being the democratisation of finance. And I had a customer on the stand early this morning on the show, and he said, I loved Mrs. Thatcher because she was the lady that got me into government privatisations. It was the British Telecom, etc. It was all of those things that really started to spark off the shareholder democracy, people taking accountability and starting to invest in companies themselves. But if we look back, there's some research that's going on around the democratisation of finance. And what's driving this self-service model, is demographics. Take a look in the room now at the wide range of ages that we've got in here, and whether it's male or female. I'll go on to that bit in a minute. But the actual demographics, we're living longer, and therefore we've got to do something about supporting ourselves. The other point is computerisation. Everybody in this room probably has access to a PC, a smartphone, tablet, whatever. Computerisation has now taken over. And if you look at the internet now, it's 25 years old. I think it was Tim Berners-Lee's anniversary this year. Telecommunications, we just expect really fast broadband to serve up. Information. Out there today at the show, just look at how much information is out there and available for you to inform your decisions, to go ahead, make informed investment decisions. But also look at the mass of retail products that are out there now, and that's going to be really interesting. If you're here today and you're starting to look at the alternative investments that are out there, and I'll talk a little bit more about asset classes in a moment, but it's the wide array of retail financial products that are out there to choose from that enables you to self-serve and start taking accountability for your financial future. But possibly the biggest influence is the role of the state. Because I think everybody knows in this room that the state is no longer going to be able to support you in your retirement, quite possibly for those coming through in education, and generally through the health service. We've got issues. The population of the UK is probably too big to sustain what's going on, and therefore government, bit by bit, is placing more onus upon you to become able to make your own decisions and participate in the democratisation of finance that's going through now. And there are some very clever guys that look at all of this. They're called ethnographers, and they're constantly looking for the trends. And business, at the same time, is also looking for these trends because it will influence how those businesses shape and form themselves for the future, because they are having to react to the marketplace. So there's a lot to be said about ethnography and how it plays out, and also looking at some of the businesses that use that in putting their business strategies together, because ultimately it's going to pay back in terms of stock prices, dividends, etc. But with the rapid progress that we've seen, there are some issues starting to arise. And as you'll see from some of the speakers later on today, what we're starting to see is that many people, as you saw on the Vox Pops earlier, are being left very confused and bewildered by the sheer range of choice and having to make those decisions themselves. 43% of people in a recent poll that we undertook don't think they've got sufficient for retirement. 35% say that the reason for this is they didn't start doing something early enough, which is really, really important. Trying to get people to actually start doing something early enough in this cycle is a real challenge. And once again, we had another customer up early this morning say, look, I'm trying to get my kids to invest. How do you do that? How do you encourage them? If you look at the millennials, as they are referred to out there, which is an age bracket pretty much 20 through to about 35, they can't afford a house. They're in London. Actually, they are being accused of spending and not saving. And it's really difficult to try and get that message across to them, to look at saving when things seem so far off. Perhaps the economy will do well for the millennials, because actually if we look at what's going on out there at the moment, we do need people to spend our way out of the economy. But with interest being as low as it is in banks at the moment, where do you go to start putting that money away? In cash savings. And it's sparking a completely different attitude to what's going to happen going forward. We're going to have to start looking at risk. Many people in this room hopefully understand risk, but there's plenty of people out there that don't. They're very used to putting their money in a bank or a building society, and they've been expecting that to give them a decent rate of return, but that's gone. I can still remember interest rates at 17% at the very, very top to where we are today. And this last couple of months, From a corporate perspective, I went to put quite a lot of money out into the money markets on deposit, and it was in euro. And I only needed to put it out overnight. And I went along to one of the large banks and said, okay, here we go, here's a large sum of money. And they said, thanks very much, that will cost you 25 basis points. And I stopped. It's the first time I've ever had that happen, negative interest rate environment, where I've actually got to pay the bank to put money on deposit. They didn't want our deposits. I'm obliged by the regulator to make sure that when I put money on deposit, it's with a very good quality bank, because it could well be your money that I'm putting out on deposit. But the issue now is that we are starting to see a change, a real sea change. Now, I really hope we don't see that happening in the retail markets, because this is going to turn the whole thing on its head. But it is a possibility that people might end up paying to put money on deposit, in which case, where are they going to go to put their monies in cash, not stocks or different asset classes? So that's one to think about during the course of the day. And there are some alternatives and there are some speakers out there, but it will boil down to thinking about your attitude towards risk. And with self-service is going to come, how do you manage risk? How do you think about risk? How do you perceive risk? And to each and every one of us in this room, risk is different. 43% of people we spoke to believe that savings and investment landscape is becoming more complicated. I can pretty much go along with that. It's hard to navigate at the moment with everything that's going on out there. Now it's the really interesting stuff, because what the ethnographers are saying is, okay, well, you're looking at the environment changing, you're looking at interest rates, savings, etc. changing, but what's happening in the household? Who's making the financial decisions? Now, I'm just looking out here at the moment, and I would say probably about 90% of this room is full of men. Interesting, because it's changing. Chaps, listen. 15% that we recently interviewed said that their spouse or partner will be making all the financial decisions in the household in the next 5 years. How do you feel about that? There's people shaking heads. There's controversy going on there. It's going to happen. 50% of women already make the major financial decisions in the household for savings and investment products. Now, people here are shaking their heads, saying, no, I don't believe that. My wife doesn't do that. The question is, have you got your wife's permission to do that? Ask yourself that, because this is going on at the moment. We are starting to see a massive shift in the way that the female psyche comes into making investment decisions, and you are going to start seeing companies adapt to that going forward, because they are a powerful marketplace. 1 in 3 of people out there, 32% of people, navigate financial decisions with their partners now. It's becoming a collective, and nearly 1/3 of women are motivated by the level of knowledge when it comes to choosing an asset class. So this is fascinating. Now, we've got Vivian Slattery, who runs one of the all-female IFA practices in the UK, to talk about this, because, and I was chatting with Vivian just earlier, women make decisions differently to men. It's fascinating. Get ready for it, because it's going to impact the markets, it's going to impact companies, it's going to impact the way that investments are made. And chaps, we ain't going to turn it back. It's on its way. And we might not feel very comfortable with that in some respects, but it's fascinating how companies are going to adapt to this gender change that we're seeing in the marketplace. I should just remind you, we've now got a female Prime Minister, so has Germany. So the power is changing. And it's how we work with that going forward, which I think is just going to be a fascinating insight to what happens in the democratisation of finance going forward. Now let's look at working past the state pension age. So in our surveys, of those who are not yet retired, 2 in 5 plan to work past the state pension age. Why? Because they haven't got enough to survive upon, because they are living longer. If we've got any actuaries in the audience, I'll apologise now, but basically what the actuaries are telling us is, actually you should start thinking now to your average age of being around about 82, 83, 84. Just hope you've got enough money in the pot to keep you going. It's a problem that is growing. Over 1/3 will continue working in their current profession past the retirement age. And that's great, because there's experience there. It's not so great when you think that you've got youngsters coming up as well from a millennial perspective that need jobs. Go out to Spain at the moment, you've got massive youth unemployment. Look at what's going on out there, and it's because the demographics have changed. You've actually got a situation now where older people are choosing to work longer, but you're not actually necessarily freeing up the jobs that are coming through. So we've got a bit of a ticking time bomb going on. And of those who are not yet retired, 35% think they will have to work past the state education age because they want to keep their mind active. They want to be engaged in society. They want to play a part. They want their experience to show up and for it to be useful and recognised. And that's great because there's lots to be able to have experience going on in a market, in a workplace. But also it's going to help them out from a savings gap as well. So we are looking at these things happening today as we speak. They are going to shape the financial markets for the future. But the real sad figure is the one down there, 14%. 14% actually don't have any choice. They're never going to retire. There are probably some in this room thinking, yeah, I'm one of them. I just can't see any way through of retiring. So I think the interesting thing is that if we look at the returns on the stock market historically, it's coming back. It's not as good as it used to be. The actuaries would always calculate, 7, 9% rate of return. I'll look at Tom. What do you reckon it is now historically, Tom?
Below 7.
It's below 7. So we are starting to see traditional stock market returns trending backwards. Look at cash. You've got pretty much 0 coming in on cash now. So you're going to have to start looking at different asset classes coming out. With them comes additional risk. But the traditional asset classes are up there. It's bonds or fixed income, it's cash, it's equities, it's shares, it's property. You know all about that, I dare say. But there are things coming through into the market that are worthy of consideration. This will include, down in that right-hand corner there, peer-to-peer lending. So we have seen the emergence of a new industry here. This is about making cash work. It's about that man over there wanting to lend money to that man over there and trusting that he's going to be a good risk and getting a decent rate of return above cash for it. Now, there are people out there looking at that right now. It's growing as an industry. It's actually probably accounting for around about 4% of all lending in the UK already. Why is that happening? Well, the banks don't necessarily want to do some of this. They don't make as much money as they used to, and therefore peer-to-peer lending is taking up the groundswell of risk management and actually facilitating some of that liquidity in the marketplace. The question is, where do you start to go to find out what deals are available for peer-to-peer lending and what rates of return you can get? So we've got a company in here this afternoon or later on called LendingWell that is an aggregator that looks in that space to compare all the different peer-to-peer opportunities that are going on. Crowdfunding. Now, the market is divided around crowdfunding. Why crowdfunding? Well, crowdfunding is a way of raising capital in the marketplace for new ventures and new projects. You used to go to the stock market to do that, if I remember rightly. And talking to the market, I talk to the brokers on a very reasonable basis, and they say, yeah, AIM, main market, IPOs coming through AIM market, probably down about 25%. Interesting. I went across and had a word with a couple of the crowdfunding guys. Yeah, our business is up about 25% at the moment. So this is fascinating. We are starting to see crowdfunding take out some of the AIM market. Why is that happening? Well, start to talk to some of the people that are here, because there will be crowdfunding people here today looking at areas of raising capital, initiatives, etc., for new projects. Will those companies go to IPO, though? And that's another big question, because if you look at what's going on in the States, to name a few, Airbnb, GoPro, none of them at the moment have gone to market, and yet they've got phenomenal valuations. There is what we call a grey market going on out there in the States at the moment for those companies. And some of those companies might never see the light of day on an investment exchange. Does that mean that we might well start to see the demise of investment exchanges as we know them? Because these crowdfunders have no secondary market. There are bulletin boards, and if I stretch my mind back, I can remember the over-the-counter market. It didn't have a very good run over here in the UK, but there was an over-the-counter market, and we could well see the re-emergence of an over-the-counter market here for crowdfunding, because they need liquidity. Alternative investments. We're going to see more requirements coming through from alternative investments. So whether that is going to be in the alternative energy sector, what we do anticipate happening is that government initiatives for raising money for new hydroelectric power schemes, for housing, etc., we will probably see the PFI initiatives close down, and you will start to see alternative investment schemes being put together very much along the lines of crowdfunding. It's another asset class that is emerging that you will need to think about on how you include that in your portfolio. And then finally, good old exchange-traded products. So we have seen a phenomenal rise in exchange-traded products. They are now becoming the ubiquitous response to how do you package up some of the other areas, peer-to-peer lending, how do you package up crowdfunding, etc. You are likely to see more emergence of exchange-traded funds in those asset classes because it's easier to purchase and it solves some of the problems of secondary markets. And we've got BlackRock along later on today who will be talking a little bit more about what's going on in the exchange-traded product market. But once again, where do you go to look at information to compare and contrast? If you've gone into a traditional mutual fund, how do you figure out whether or not it's more efficient to have an exchange-traded product, or does it look very similar to that mutual fund? So I'm very pleased to announce today that Self-Trade is now in beta testing with ETF Hunter, which is a development that we've been working with the team on for the last couple of years. If you go to the stand, have a look, because you can actually start to put a mutual fund in there, look it up, and compare and contrast it against an exchange-traded product and get a rough idea of whether or not you're going to be any better off from the point of view of having a very similar outcome, and look at how much the difference is that you've been paying in charges. So that's a thing that's going on in the market. We're very pleased about it. It's in beta test. We're keen to hear your responses. Go out there and have a look. It's actually out there on the stand. And we'll have the guys from ETF Hunter a little bit later on talking about what's going on in that marketplace and how you can compare and contrast traditional mutual fund investing to exchange-traded products. So, to really sum up for the day, a few things to think about. One, are you taking accountability for your financial future? You might well be, but if the family necessarily isn't, do try not to nag them. Do try to get them along here. We had rumour of people coming in that were much, much younger than the average people in this room, which is great news. So I'm really pleased if people are taking accountability for their financial future. Next point, have you got a plan? It's never too late. Some of those people we saw earlier in the video had left it too late. It is never too late to start planning and get your plan together. 3, how you're managing your risks. There's plenty of people around here. Start to consider, how do you manage risk? Each and every one of us in this room is different. I ride motorcycles. I do them at very high speed. People will say you're an idiot, you've only got 2 wheels. I'm managing my risk, yeah? But some people have got different views of what is a risk and what is not a risk. But do look at that, and there are some great sites out there in the marketplace at the moment that look at how you manage risk, and it's the emotional side of it versus the actual hard and fast side of it. Next, is there a place in your investment portfolio for some of those alternative asset classes? Start thinking very seriously, they're on their way. And then finally, have you got your cash working hard enough? So let's hope your bank won't be turning around to you in the next few weeks saying, and we're going to charge you to put money on deposit. I don't think that's going to happen. But do start to look at some of those alternatives that are out there in the peer-to-peer marketplace, but do consider that there are risks and there are higher risks involved. The world is changing and we're all part of it. Thank you very much for your time, and enjoy the rest of the show and the speakers today. Thank you.